Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good Morning Eastvale. My name is Molly Corton, and today we are joined by maybe my most exciting guest, I think. We have Sheriff Chad Bianco on today. So I'll let you, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself in any type of way.
Well, I think you just did, and that was very nice of you. I am Chad Bianco. I'm the Riverside County Sheriff, your sheriff, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Well, thanks so much for coming. I know you're very busy, so I'm so glad. When I first emailed the team, I was like, this is such a long shot. I did not think we would get you. And they emailed right away, like, yeah, we'll let them know. And then like the next day they were like, okay, what works?
Well, good. You never know until you ask.
I know. And I hadn't asked. I've been thinking about it, but I was like, I don't know. He's very busy. And they were so accommodating. So,
well, I'm glad. I told them to always be. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but we try and always work it in. This is super important. Community things, community podcasts like this that are for the residents, for our cities. They're super important. It's not like, I mean, this is something that we all here care about. And so it's important that I do these.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. So we're going to ask you some like hard hitting questions, but we always like to ask like fun, get to know you questions first. And I know I didn't like send these over, but so these are just fun questions. Okay. So the first one is, if you could relive only one day, like you could go back in time and relive a day in your life, what day would you relive? Oh
my gosh. Relive one day. It's hard. That would be hard to find the best day. Oh my gosh. I wish you would have warned me about these. I can feel myself flushing.
Your wife and kids are like, it better be
I know.
my wedding. It better
and
be my
all
birth.
of the kids are like, it better be me. It better not be that one.
I know, but I had to give you a hard one.
That is hard. I have been very, very blessed in my life from the time I was a child until today. And I know that, but the biggest part of my life, was probably the day I met my wife. And and I know that sounds corny and she's going to say you only said that because, but everything happens for a reason, and you're in situations for a reason. And as I've progressed through my deputy career with my wife, all through all of my promotions and really the rest of my career into this, I know that it couldn't be possible without her. So either that day or our wedding day. Our wedding day was perfect. We got married by ourselves in Hawaii.
That's so awesome.
That was just the perfect day ever. The weather, the scenery, and everything. But the day I met her was probably the best day of my life.
That's so sweet. I love that answer. Good answer. I'm sure that's a lot of brownie points too.
I hope so.
Okay, so next question. If you could have any superpower, but it can only be used for like a mundane task, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
Like if you could eliminate something in the day using a superpower.
A superpower, it would have something to do with not necessarily time travel, but being able to rewind and then change something.
Okay. I think that's good. I could totally use that.
I would use that often. I
feel like most people would. I like that. That's a good one. I think when we had Congresswoman Norma Torres on, she said that she would just like eliminate having to like commute anywhere. Like just
that's a good one.
Just be somewhere so she doesn't have to waste time in the car.
That is a good one.
I love that. The no commuting, I would do anything almost.
Yes, there's something about if you're going to live, especially in Southern California, you cannot not like traffic. You have to be okay with it because if not, you will drive yourself nuts.
Yes.
So she picked a good one.
I totally agree. Okay, so last question. What is a book, movie, or song that has influenced your life?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is just going to sound crazy because this is just popping into my head because it probably is my favorite song. So there's probably a lot of things that influenced my life, but this was playing when I pulled up and parked out front. But it's Born Free by Kid Rock.
Okay, I like that.
And that is by far my favorite song. And it just happened to be playing when I pulled up. So now when you ask that, it's like, okay, well, that's in my head right now. So
I think that's fate. That means this is going to be a good episode.
You never know.
Because I hope so. It came on. It's your favorite song. It's fate. Well, thank you for answering the fun questions. So I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting ones now. They're not that hard-hitting, but so.
I'm ready.
Okay, good. So correct me if I'm wrong. You were first elected in 2018.
I was.
Re-elected in 2022. And then I know there's some law right now. So you're going to be in until 2028, like an extended term.
Yes. So historically, all of the sheriffs in the state were elected on the governor cycle. So and the governor is off presidential. So you have the presidential cycle and you have governor cycle. And we were always on the governor cycle. And there was a law change, and it was unfortunately for California, everything is political. But the current political climate of California is anti-law enforcement. And they are particularly anti-sheriff. And they are anti-sheriff because they have no political control over what I do. They have they don't have their thumb on me. They can't threaten me. They can't blackmail me. They can't do anything to get me to do something that the people don't want.
Yeah, definitely.
And so they don't like sheriffs. And so their intent with this, and this is a stated intent, this is not me making this up, this is a stated intent, was to move the sheriff's elections and the DA elections to the presidential cycle because they believe, or they know, that they get a better Democrat turnout on presidential cycles than they do off elections. And so they believe that with that bigger Democrat turnout, they will be able to unelect sheriffs that believe in law and order and DAs that believe in law and order, and they will be able to put people in that they can control that have a political agenda rather than a law and order agenda. So their intent was to shorten our election, and it would have been right now. So I was elected in 2022, and I would have had to run again in 2024. But the court said that because I'm a constitutionally elected officer, you cannot shorten that time frame that the voters put me in there for. So they had to extend it by 2 years. So this particular election is 6, and it's 2028 will be the next one. And then it will go back to the 4-year cycle.
Okay, that makes sense. I was curious as to, I was reading about it and seeing that it had changed, but I was like kind of not understanding why. So that's a good insight. So then obviously now you've been sheriff for several years. You're going to be for several more years. So was there like a specific point in your career where you were like, I want to be the sheriff? Did you always want to do that? Did like a specific thing happen where you're like, this is what I'm doing? Or how did you like get into this? There's
a lot of things that happen. And my easy answer to say is no, I've not always wanted to do this, but I do have to bring up something in my very first eval. So I was probably 4 or 5 months into the sheriff's office. I was a brand new employee, and I got
how
my
old
first.
Were you then?
I was 26.
Okay,
so I started when I was 26, and my first evaluation was I'm interacting with my supervisor, and she's asking me, what are your goals? That was for my eval, and I'm like, well, I want to get off probation. And she's like, that's not a goal. I
don't want to get fired.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I want to go to patrol. And she's like, well, that's a gimme. Everybody goes to patrol. That's not a goal. What are your goals? And I had no idea. It's like, well, I don't know. And she's like, well, you have to have career goals, or you have to have something. And I just happened to say, I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe I guess I'll be the sheriff. And she wrote that in my eval.
Oh my God.
And I didn't necessarily mean it. It's just I couldn't come up with anything else. But it was like, well, of course I want to promote, and I want to do everything I can to better my career. And so that followed me forever because everyone learns about that. And then when I ended up going to patrol, it's like, oh, it's the sheriff. And my first day of patrol, they set me in the front, had Sheriff Bianco on it. And it was, I don't want to say hazing, but it's those types of things. It's, oh, this is the guy that thinks he's going to be the sheriff.
Oh my gosh. And so like, I just said it because I didn't know.
I know. And
that's so funny.
So I had to live that down. But going on in my career, I was a lieutenant, and I was in Moreno Valley, and there was a lot that I knew we could do better. And I knew that we weren't doing what I felt we should be doing for our residents, for the city of Moreno Valley, for the residents of Moreno Valley, because that was my station. That's what I was in charge of. And I realized that I couldn't do anything because you're limited by what your superiors and the department policy says. So then later on, I had several different assignments after that. And then I ended up in Hemet. And it was the same thing. And that's why I really ran again in 2017 is when I decided to run again. But originally, the first time I ran in 2014 and lost. And at that time, I was either going to retire or I was going to make it better, because I knew that the only way I could make the changes that I felt we should be doing for our community, department policy, are just the way we really did law enforcement for the community oriented policing, engaging, the transparency, the honesty, that was lacking.
Yeah.
And I knew it, and it bothered me personally. And I knew that there was the only thing I could do was either quit and go somewhere else or do something to make that change. And that was running for sheriff. So that was the first time I decided. And there were many things that happened along the way after that loss that really drove me to running again, and that really drove the department or the deputies, the men and women that really make up the sheriff's office. It drove them to wanting me to run again and supporting me in that endeavor just because of the things that had happened. And so really, ultimately, I guess the bottom line is I knew we weren't doing enough, and I knew we could be better, and I wanted to make it better. I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist. I don't believe in perfection because we can never get there, but I believe you should always be trying.
Yeah.
You can never be perfect, but there's no reason why you shouldn't always try.
For sure.
And I say all the time, I tell all of our new deputies, there's none of us woke up this morning, walked out of our house, and everyone has a mirror right before you leave, or your car mirror or whatever it is. And we never look in that mirror and fix our collar, and we're happy with ourselves, and we say, you know what, I'm going to be mediocre today.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the bare minimum.
Yeah, we don't do that. And so if we approach every day trying to make something better, that's all we can do is make everything around us better. And that's my goal with the sheriff's office is every single day we have to make something better. And ultimately, that's why I wanted to be the sheriff, because that's the only person that could make it better.
Well, I love that, one, you ran with such pure intent of just wanting it to be better, but also it's so funny that you just said that as like an offhanded joke, and people were like making fun of you, and then now they're probably like, man, wow, we used to make fun of him, and like
I know,
like
and
man,
it always gets brought up because they'll say, I remember back when you said this, or back when we used to tease you about this, and now look what happened.
And you made it. So now that you are obviously the sheriff, and I'm sure there were so many things that you saw when you weren't, do you feel like you have made genuine progress towards those things, or where are you at with those goals that you had? I
certainly do. And I can't take all of the credit for it, because in our line of work, I think it was a culture issue. And it was the worst thing for me is the saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. And law enforcement was stuck in that. And decades ago, we were successful. Society evolved, and we didn't. And so the whole transparency thing and the whole making adjustments on how we patrolled and how we interacted. When I was a little kid, there was the cops were officious, and they were, they were the stoic, stone-faced, only the facts. And that had to change, because that people didn't want that anymore. They wanted something different, and we didn't change. And so that culture was always there. I think we all knew it, but it was just, well, that's not who we are, and we have to do it this way. And so when I took over and I made it known that this is what I want to happen, that was like it was opening the floodgates, because that's what everyone else wanted too. And so it was that culture change in our department to be more friendly, to be more normal. I used to take home, my work left at work. And when I went home, I'm just a husband and a dad. And I didn't bring work home. I don't treat my wife like an inmate. My kids were not inmates.
I'm sure they appreciate that.
I didn't grill them. I was just a dad, and I was a husband. And that's what I want all of our department to be like. And I want them to bring that to work. I want them to be, when they're interacting with kids, I want them to be a dad. I don't want them to be a cop. I want them to be a mom when they go out to these places and help a child or influence a child, and just be a good human being when we go into these situations and how we deal with people. And I think everybody wanted that, but it was, it's like, we don't do that. We can't do that. Yeah. And so the changes that we have made in our organization are really, it's astronomical. It's a 180-degree turn from the direction we were going. And honestly, it's for the best. We are known now for our patrol practices and the way we handle really, hot calls for service and tense situations. We handle them different than most agencies. And those agencies are coming to us and saying, hey, you guys are very successful at that. We want to do that now. And how are you doing that? So the whole thing about just being more interactive and more, I'm just a person that lives in Riverside County, and I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's my appeal, that why people are drawn to me, or I am quite successful. I definitely have an opinion, and I speak my mind, and, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind, but I think that's what people are looking for. And they know that what they get from me is pure honesty. Our profession is built on honesty. And I think that some of the things that we did, the transparency issues, we did our own self a disservice. And people are just begging to be honest.
Yeah.
They may not like my answer, but they know that it's honest, and they know they're just asking for the truth. And I think that's where we are going with an agency is we're just trying to provide you the best service we possibly can. And we want to do it as humanely and as human as possible, because we're just regular guys and girls that are out in a different assignment, in a different job, and trying to do our best.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I grew up in an unincorporated, like super small mountain community. So we don't have a city council. I never really interacted with law enforcement much or anything. And then when I started working here, I've worked at a few different cities, but here I have just been so impressed, because we have had the kindest like lieutenants and deputies. And we used to have, now Captain Boyd was our lieutenant, and he was amazing. And then now we have Ernie Escobar as our lieutenant. And just all the deputies, like they are the kindest, nicest people. And same thing with the city council. But I feel like when you don't interact with them a lot, you have this like weird perception of law enforcement or government. And same thing, like we're just here, trying to do our best in the day to day. And, people always have this like, feelings about the government, which makes sense, because not everyone is doing the right thing. Same thing in law enforcement. But most people, they're just humans trying to do their best and trying to make it through the day. And I think it's important that people, are getting that face-to-face like interaction with law enforcement, because when they meet them, they're like, oh, these are just people just doing their best. And they're not like these bad guys out to get you. Yeah. But that happens.
You're exactly right. And the word you used was perception. And perception is based somewhat on a reality. And sometimes perception becomes the reality. And I said that earlier, that we caused all of this. We were our own worst enemy. And so that perception that people have of us was caused by years of either neglect or that attitude that we had where society was growing in one direction and we were staying stagnant. Yeah. And so now we're trying to catch up. And so I think that when it's exactly what you said, people, when they have that interaction with the deputy, it's like, wait a minute.
Oh, wait.
She was a great person, or, hey, he was very nice to me. Yeah. And then they're surprised, because that's either not what they were told to expect, or that's not what they learned from an experience in the past. And so we're doing our best to make it better. And we know it's going to take time.
And I think it's good too that you're, again, doing that honesty and that accountability, saying it hasn't always been good, but we're working on it. And I think it's true that obviously I work in communication for the city, and they don't always love the truth, but the truth is always, I think, obviously the best.
Yes.
It's always the best policy. They might not be happy with it, but if you do it, it's obviously better. But I think taking that accountability and saying, we haven't been perfect, but we're getting there. Like we're working on it. Like, I think that's the first step. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure the residents do. Good. So I'm going to dive into the next topic, and I'm going to read this out because there's no way I'll get this right. But so as the sheriff, you oversee 5 jail facilities, 6 court buildings, a civil bureau, the coroner's bureau, the public administration office, 12 patrol stations, 17 contract cities, 4,200 employees, and an operating budget of over $1 billion. So obviously you're overseeing 1,010 things, actually over $1 billion, you know? So what are your top priorities? How do you prioritize different communities? How are you accomplishing and overseeing these things in the day to day? Like, that's just so many I couldn't imagine.
That's a great question, because we are enormous. We are a extremely large organization. We're the 2nd largest sheriffs in California. We're the 4th largest in the country. Wow. And law enforcement wise, even adding all the police departments and everything else, we're, depending on hiring and firing, it changes every month, but we're like between 18 and 22. And so that's huge. Yeah. It's large. And one of the things that you said, it kind of stuck out, and we were talking earlier about time, is my chiefs of police in the county, my peer, the chiefs in Riverside County, and I meet all the time. We have a very great relationship, and we're all on the same page. But they're busy. I mean, they have their city councils, they have all of those things, and they do all of these things. And I have 17 contract cities.
Oh my gosh,
so
that is
I tell them all the time, it's like, yeah, that's cute. You know, I feel sorry for you and your time with your city, but I have 17 of them.
Yes.
And so it is unbelievably time consuming. And then you throw in the jail. And I am very fortunate that I have fabulous coworkers.
Yes.
And the men and women of the sheriff's office are aligned perfectly with my goals and my vision for our agency. So I have so much help, but I am certainly busy, and we are certainly large. And one of I guess the ultimate question is, how did you do that with what do you do and how do you approach it? One of the things that I did is what I believed we always did wrong was, we came out and we said, we're going to fight gangs, or we're going to fight drugs, or we're going to fight car theft, whatever it was, we were coming out. And then that's what the whole mission became. Well, what if your community wasn't experiencing gangs?
Yeah.
And so did we neglect you? And the answer was yes, because we targeted certain things. So what my goal is that every single city, every single county area, every single community is treated completely different. We will address the quality of life issues that concern you. And if drugs aren't your issue in your community, we're not going to focus on drugs. It could be domestic violence. It could be littering. It could be loitering. It could be anything, trespassing, whatever your quality of life issue is for your community. That's what we address. And every city has a quality of life issue, and every neighborhood in that city has a quality of life issue. And we have to be the ones to adapt to address those quality of life issues. So everyone is taken into account and everyone is taken care of. And it makes it more difficult for sure, because you need that personal interaction with your community. But in the end, that's what the community wanted anyway.
Definitely.
And the whole idea of community-oriented policing, that's exactly what it is. You can read books about community-oriented policing and everything else, but that doesn't put your heart and your soul into it. It's just a book.
For sure.
And it doesn't give you a personal buy-in into your community. And I think when you talk about just quality of life issues, then you can do that. And you can say, it doesn't matter what it is, but I have a personal buy-in of making that person's life better. And that's how we approach things. And so every single city is different. And the city of Eastvale, I'll use Eastvale and Norco. Eastvale and Norco, two completely different cities.
Definitely.
And the issues in Norco are not the issues in Eastvale. So if I treated Eastvale the same way law enforcement wise as Norco, then one of them is going to suffer in the services that they got from us. So we have to recognize that everyone is different and everyone has their own issues. And while I have 17 contract cities and all of the county areas, the board of supervisors, and I have to interact with all of them, I give a lot of power and leeway to the captains and the lieutenants here. They know the direction, they know what I expect. And I want the cities to feel comfortable knowing that they're going to get that from them. If they don't, they can always reach out to me and I will, at the drop of a hat, be there for them, and we will fix it and we will make it right. But empowering somebody else to further your vision and to further your mission, that's where we've been successful. And so you talking about the lieutenants here and the captains at the Harupa Valley Station captain who ultimately oversees, but you have your own leader here in the lieutenants that you have here, and knowing that has been successful and you miss them and you like them. And that means that we're doing something right.
Yes. I love that approach, that individualized approach, because all of our cities are so different. And in Eastvale, we're really fortunate. We have like a very safe community for the most part. And we definitely even when I'm driving around, the community, I can tell exactly when the street splits from Eastvale back to Norco to Chino, just because you can tell by the way, obviously infrastructure and things, but just because the communities are so different and the needs are completely different. And I'll see a street and I'm like, oh, this is our street or this isn't our street, just based off of a few things that I see, I can tell. But yeah, I think we've had such phenomenal lieutenants here and captains. I know Captain Kohler just got like promoted and he's leaving us, which I'm so happy for him. I'm definitely sad because I love Captain Kohler. But it's awesome too to have Lieutenant Escobar because he's an Eastvale resident. So he knows the community. He obviously is personally invested in the community and he's lived here a long time. So he raised his family here and his wife is here with him. And so I think that adds like a special element to that. He's personally invested in this even more than just this, being his job. It's like, this is his whole life is here. So I think he serves the community so well.
There's a lot to be said from that. And there is historically, we have never done that. We have always, law enforcement never wanted to work where they lived because they didn't want to be seen by the people they were arresting or dealing with. And while I get that argument, it's wrong. It's the wrong argument to have. And the reality is the people that we're dealing with, they don't recognize you as a person. They see you as this.
Yes.
And I remember one day being in the grocery store and the day before I had arrested a person for a drug lab and he bailed out and he was behind me in line at the grocery store. And we were talking about the things we were buying and everything else. And it was completely obvious he had no idea who I was. But I had spent the last day with him, arresting him.
That's so funny.
And because I wasn't in my uniform garb and everything else, he just, I was in shorts, a t-shirt, and a ball cap.
Yeah.
And he just didn't recognize me. So that's proof that it doesn't matter. But to Lieutenant Escobar, when you live in the community, you have that buy-in that, hey, I need to do something to make this better.
Yeah.
And it does affect me. It affects my wife, my kids, my husband, whatever the case may be, my neighbors. Yeah. So I am in a position that I can do something to help. And so it gives you that personal buy-in and that love for your community and the pride for your community and you want to do things better. So we have made it a point to, if people want to work close to home, we do everything we can to let them work close to home. And it used to be where you promote, you leave. And we don't do that anymore either. We do in-house promotions all the time where, you'll stay in Herpa Valley or you'll stay in Eastvale. Awesome. And it works because the city knows you, the people know you. Yeah. You may live here and that's what we want. That's the relationship that I'm hoping we have by the time I leave. Is just that perception of law enforcement. You can have it somewhere else, but you can't have it here because we've changed the reality. Okay.
So last question I want to ask you. So obviously we started the podcast to give residents like behind the scenes look at different positions and lives and, walks in Eastvale. So I'm sure as the sheriff, you have so many like misconceptions about your position and who you are and different things. So do you have anything that you would want to share? Like one, or if you have like 20, any misconceptions where you're like, I really need to address this right now, or something that people get wrong about you?
It's a good question. It's a good question. And I'll try and keep it short and concise, but yes, I know that I'm in a very public role and I have my supporters and I have my detractors. And for me, I know what the truth is. And unfortunately, everyone else doesn't. You sometimes have to either believe or trust someone. And I wish that what people would believe is they would see by actions what we're doing or what I'm doing, who I am as a person, as a dad, as a husband, as a neighbor, just a guy trying to make a difference, instead of a political identity, political figure. I don't think I'm a political figure. Unfortunately, I'm in a political role because you all elected me to this position. Yes. But I think I'm here for a reason. I'm here I know I'm different. I know I am not that politician that has his own agenda or wishes or aspirations for the future. I'm a religious person. I would not say that I'm a Bible thumper, but I certainly am a religious person, and religion really plays a huge part of my life. And I would hope that everything that I do has some basis in that. And I know that I'm placed in positions for my ability, for my God-given abilities and gifts, and I will use them to whatever benefit the community I can for the community, not for myself. Mm-hmm. And I wish that we were all able, ultimately, I wish that I could sit down with every single person in the county of Riverside or the country that may not like me or what we're doing in the sheriff's office, and explain to them why, and explain to them the background, and explain to them who I am, and really the person behind these decisions and these statements and things like that, because I think that would give everyone a different idea. I wish people would care about law enforcement. I wish they would care about public safety. I think that we've drifted. I believe that government's number one role is in government is the safety of, whether it be the county or the state or the country. That's the goal of government.
Definitely.
And I'm a part of that. And I truly do believe that. And I wish everyone did.
Yeah.
And I wish we could, there was a time, I mean, I'm a lot older than you, but when I was a kid, you didn't talk about religion and you didn't talk about politics. That's a good thing, because it eliminates two things to fight about.
Yes, definitely.
But I think that also got us to the point where we are today, because we've forgotten both of those things. And I wish people would get more involved. I wish they would speak out. I wish they would care. I know they care, but I wish they would care outside of their homes and outside of their circles, and be a little bit more vocal and more supportive. I've seen over the last several months on the news of people getting involved in helping people instead of filming it on their phones. And I think that's a huge shift in society that we've seen lately. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be the person promoting that. I want to be the person encouraging that. And I wish that's what I was seen for, instead of just, oh, he's that right-wing extremist, because that isn't me. I'm not right-wing, and I'm not an extremist. But if you don't believe in what someone else believes, then they label you as something else. So my goal when I leave here is to have the best sheriff's office in the country. I want everyone to look at us to find out how to do things right, how to fix things, how to, even if it's how to not do something wrong. We're not perfect. So if we do something wrong, I want to fix it. And I want someone to look at us and say, oh, wow, they fixed it and they did a good job. I'm going to do that too. And I think that if everyone would give us that benefit of the doubt and support us rather than try and tear us down, I think we'd be able to make our county, our communities, our cities a lot better, and get rid of the bickering and the fighting. And we all have far more in common than we have not. And if we would concentrate on those commonalities, I think we would be able to go backwards a little bit and make our communities stronger, our relationships stronger, and really our government better. And I guess if that was a wish, I don't even know if that answered the question, but
no, it did.
Maybe just a little different of as you're talking about perceptions of me and how people perceive me. I am certainly opinionated. I am certainly strong. You cannot threaten me. You cannot, I'm up for a fight. And you can't blackmail me. You can't bribe me. None of those things matter to me. And I wish that's what people saw. I wish people just saw the character and the man behind this badge and this uniform, that I truly am there for us, for this county, for the county of Riverside, and ultimately it makes our surrounding counties better too. And if it turns out to be the state, then it turns out to be the state too. But we can always try to do something better.
Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on, one, and also letting the residents just get to know you and see your heart. And, again, like you've been saying, you're just a guy, just a person doing the best that you can do. And I feel like the residents really got a good look at that today. So thank you for answering all the questions, for coming out, for supporting the community. We appreciate you and all that RSO is doing. You all serve our city very well. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
So
I know they're proud to do it. I'm proud to be your sheriff. I'm proud to be associated with Eastvale. And truly thank you for asking me to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you too for everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you next time.